We spend so much time at work, even if we're working from home, you're still working for 7, 8, 9 hours a day. And lots of times people think about performance when it comes to working out or fitness or what they do outside of work. But what is the brain fitness or performance happening during that 8 or 9 hours? You've got to do a presentation in front of a client. And so what immediately is going to happen is you're going to go to a threat or reward state. Boy, when you hit that threat state, then all of a sudden you have cortisol being released. How do I calm down? How do I get rid of cortisol? How do I perform even when I am in a constant fear state? It's just like you're in this super nice car and it has no gas. And the best research shows that if you just walk 3 hours a week, and I don't care how you divide it up, just walk 3 hours a week, you decrease your all-cause mortality by 50% within a couple of weeks. We exercise our bodies, but we don't oftentimes think we need to exercise our brains. And you have to exercise your brain, that neuroplasticity, to learn and to develop and rewire and get the right neural networks and the synapses firing off. It is life-changing. Now, not just that, but remember, you're going to get like a 20% at least productivity boost for the next 90 minutes based upon that 5 minutes.
Welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.
Welcome back to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast. I am Drew Griesel, executive wellness coach and founder of Primal Wellness Coaching. Today, I am joined by someone who has made a big impact on me years ago in my career in corporate finance, Dr. Chris Bray. Chris is the founder and CEO of the Adaption Institute, and he has spent his career helping leaders and teams thrive in the middle of constant change. He's got this incredible ability to take the science of the brain and make it real so you can actually use it in your life and in your career. He actually doesn't know it, but he helped me to make the decision to pursue this path in health and wellness and performance coaching many years ago. We are going to talk about adaptability. We're going to talk about burnout and hormones and brain chemistry and how you can unlock the right habits and chemicals to perform at your best. Dr. Chris Bray, it is so good to see you again, and welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint Podcast.
Oh, it's an honor to be here. I'm excited. We're going to have lots to talk about, Drew. Good to see you.
It's been ages since we've had a conversation, and I don't know that I've ever had you as a captive audience for myself for whatever length of time we're going to be chatting today. So this is exciting for me.
Oh, it's good to be here. It's exciting for me too. I love what you're doing. I love where you're going. Love the podcast. So we're going to have some good things to talk about. A lot of similar interest in what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one thing that actually jumped out at me when I, spent the last bunch of years getting into the fitness and then the wellness and now the lifestyle and kind of corporate performance space. Is the evolution of all of that they're all tied together. And then, I continue I read your newsletter, I listen to your podcast, and, you're very focused in the workplace performance space, but it's all interrelated. Like it all connects at a physiological level. And it's very interesting.
Oh yeah. Think about it. We spend so much time at work, even if we're working from home, you're still working for 7, 8, 9 hours a day. And lots of times people think about performance when it comes to, working out or fitness or what they do outside of work. But what is the brain fitness or performance happening during that 8 or 9 hours? And so it's just hitting its stride in corporate America, where we're really looking at a lot of the research and data around your brain, but also your body performance at work and how much it affects, how well you do, how you behave, how you communicate, how you think, how you get angry and upset and deal with that. So just every aspect of our lives absolutely has to do with what we're talking about today.
Yeah, 100%. And it occurs to me in the many years that I've known you after a fashion, I actually don't know your backstory. So I have no idea how you got into the field of neuroscience and adaptability. And how that became the focus of your life's work. So I'm just curious if you could kind of shed some light on how you got to where you are.
You bet. Probably like most people, it's kind of a circuitous route here. Like I started out in corporate America. I was working for a healthcare company.
Okay.
So when I was working for the healthcare company, there was an individual who hired me, and then she kept on getting promoted. And so she'd get promoted, and then she'd kind of take me with her to, the next position. And
I had a couple people like that.
Yeah, which is really helpful. I'm always grateful for her and the people who helped build the career. But as I was going along, I needed more, education in what I was doing. So I went back and got my master's, then went to get a PhD. And I really wanted to work in headquarters in New York City and do organizational development globally for this global organization. So I had to get a PhD. They were kind enough to actually pay for a lot of that PhD and said, hey,
Nice.
stick around after, help us out, we'll promote you into this position. Well, some other things happened, some medications, some drugs didn't go so well. And so they had, just some layoffs and different things. I kept on saying, lay me off. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Wouldn't. I mean, for good reason.
Give me a package.
I know. Just give me a package. Give me the cash. Let's just say it. Let's just verbalize it. Give me the cash. So they finally came around, did that. And so I decided, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start this business. And when I started, my chairperson for my first PhD was a lot in adult development, like what happens to adults once they hit about 23, 24.
Cool.
And I think a lot on the workplace. And so my chairperson was like, Chris, no one's going to give you a job in this. No one's going to hire you as a consultant in this.
Yeah.
But just so happened that 2016, 17, 18, a couple of years after I had started that things really hit. And then when COVID hit, boy, it just launched a lot around performance and thriving and resilience in the workplace while we're under those stressors, and just helped launch the company. And here we are, with what, and it's just kind of evolved over the years. In fact, I did the first PhD, and then after a while I realized, I know the psychology of it, but I need to know the brain side of it. And so I went back, got another PhD, ABD, because I didn't do another dissertation, and got that information and knowledge. And so it just has armed us to really start to work in this environment that's really just taking off now. It's really starting to get going.
Yeah. But you were the first person that opened the door for me into even the idea that neuroscience matters to the everyday person, that it can be meaningful, and that understanding how the brain works can be leveraged for, success and happiness. Mm-hmm. And it was very interesting to me to have that brought into the corporate space, right? Because it's usually, they're talking about performance, or show up and work hard and, be efficient and use the tools and, just produce. So it was nice to have that supplemented by, hey, here's how you can show up and perform at your best in a scientifically backed way, right? Based on physiology. So it was very interesting. And so most of my exposure to you was pre-pandemic. So in my time in corporate finance, you were brought in to conferences and meetings. You were a keynote speaker. You led all kinds of great presentations. I remember you came to one of my team meetings. You actually coached someone that worked for me. And this was all pre-pandemic. So you said things really took off during the pandemic. So that was kind of what brought me into this space as well, was in the early days of the pandemic. I just saw people tanking all around me, and I was great. Like I was happy. I was like, okay, I see what's happening in the world, but personally I'm fine. Like I got my family's okay. Still got my job. I'm working at home, so that's okay. But I saw people around me just becoming like miserable and depressed. And like, all right, what can we do about this? And so it kind of set me off on this journey. It seems like that's where you hit the major growth. So how did you break in through kind of the downturn that the pandemic created on like the mental health of society?
Oh yeah. And it's terrible to say that, like my business took off during that time, but as you said, we're all at home. Everybody's starting to go stir crazy, the uncertainty that's happening in the brain. What does it mean? What medications, what we're doing about the vaccine, all sorts of questions came up. People didn't know what to do. You had nowhere to work out. We're working out in the backyard, trying to, P90X, pulling out the old videos that we had, or anything that you could
utilize.
Can't
even buy a dumbbell because they're all sold out everywhere. They cost $900 for a 25-pound weight.
Oh, so true. So what happened during the pandemic is some organizations came to us and said, okay, we're realizing productivity is down, thriving's down, resilience is down. Can you help us create something for our organizations that people can be doing at home while they're working? And so we created some different products during that time, and it just took off because it really was around change. How do we change? How do we adapt to all the changes?
Yeah.
But not just that, how do you become more resilient and thrive during those times so that your performance actually increases? And, one of the companies I can say it was HSBC, which is a global worldwide organization. It was so powerful and impactful to their teammates and employees that they released it for all of their clients in certain
Wow.
parts of the world, saying, hey, you've got to be able to watch this. And so then, word starts to spread, and it really got out to a lot of different organizations about what they could do during a time that people had no idea what to do. How do you go shopping? I mean, it was all just in the middle of change and uncertainty.
Yeah.
So it helped out. We learned a lot during that time and just made some shifts that really matched what was going on in the world.
Makes sense. And even outside of something as huge as a global pandemic, which changes everyone's way of life. I mean, even just in regular life and career, and this is something that I hear constantly from people in my life and from people that I coach, is that they're always dealing with change regardless. Like, the pandemic was at a grand scale, but they're always dealing with change, and people are constantly having to work through that, and they get change fatigue. And I'm just curious, from your perspective, what is happening in the brain when we're constantly having to adapt, and why does it leave people just feeling so drained and sometimes unmotivated?
And it's more than just the 3 o'clock. I'm exhausted after lunch and ready for a nap. Well, as you said, we just live in a world that is constantly changing, and our brains were not made to deal with change that fast. So
Quick pause in the conversation. So today we are talking with Dr. Chris Bray about hormones and brain chemistry and what really drives performance. And this is exactly what my Superhuman Blueprint 10-week transformation program was designed to tackle. So if you've been feeling drained or burned out or like you've lost your edge, this program gives you the system you need to restore your energy and your hormones and get your focus and confidence back. High performers pay me thousands of dollars for private coaching through this blueprint, but you can have it for a very small portion of the price. So here it is, the Superhuman Blueprint Transformation Program, available for you. Go to primalwellnesscoaching.com, use code podcast at checkout for 10% off. primalwellnesscoaching.com for the Superhuman Blueprint 10-week wellness transformation. It is incredible. It will change your life. All right, let's get back to our conversation with Chris.
The major reason for our brain is to keep us alive. It wants to keep us alive. And so it's constantly looking and, our surrounding environment to say, is there any threat? Well, as you saw through the pandemic and all the changes now, there is a constant threat, but it's not just a physical threat. Like, I'm a caveman, cavewoman, I'm walking out and I'm thinking I'm starving, I want some food, but we're also thinking I don't want to be anybody else's food.
Yeah.
But now it's also an emotional threat. It's a meaning threat and a purpose threat. So do I belong? Do people value what I have to say and hear? And do I have meaning and purpose in my life? And so a lot of those questions then cause us to go to a threat or reward, or somewhere along that scale of threat or reward. Well, as you said, boy, when you hit that threat state, then all of a sudden you have cortisol being released, that hormone. You've got some other things happening in the brain that cause us to, like heartbeat goes faster. Cortisol is released in the body, and it may extend for a long amount of time. Our hands start to sweat. And even in small things like, maybe you get on a Zoom call meeting with your boss and you're going over a presentation or something, and it isn't going so well. Your brain goes to that threat state, and it's the calm, prefrontal cortex. I'm thinking, I'm making great decisions. I'm able to communicate well. You're just trying to survive. And the problem with that is the longer that we experience that, the more it affects both our brain and our body. And that's where even now there's so much connection. It is not just happening in our brain. Yeah, the hormones are there and the the different chemicals are being released in the body or in the brain, but then they're going throughout the body and they're causing all sorts of emotion, but not just emotions, they're affecting the organs of all of our body. Which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit of the vagal nerve there, which is going throughout your whole body. It's affecting every aspect or major aspect of your body, from your heart to your lungs to your liver, et cetera. So it really does play a dual role between the brain and your body. And people just don't know, people don't know what to do about it. Like, how do I calm down? How do I get rid of cortisol? How do I perform even when I am in a constant fear state and I'm not in this reward state?
Yeah. Well, so your company is called the Adaption Institute, and I feel like the progression of this is the ability to adapt, right? So we're talking about change. So how do you resolve having to deal with constant change? You learn how to adapt. So Yeah, I'm curious, what does adaptability mean then at the brain level?
Oh, at the brain level, and then we can take steps further from that. At the brain level, it's all about rewiring the brain. It's
Yeah.
about neuroplasticity. So new experiences, small changes or stressors in the day that teach us that it's okay for change to happen. And so when you're rewiring the brain, it means that you're learning, you're growing, you're doing things differently. You are having what's considered, that growth mindset where your brain is actually rewiring itself every single day. So you almost inoculate yourself to go through change in a way that not just I'm dealing with a change, but I'm actually bouncing back at higher levels than I was before the pre-stressor, before the challenge. So I can handle it better. I can handle more stress. I can communicate better. I'm not feeling all those things or, in the body or thinking all these things like I can't do this. I'm going to fail. Oh my goodness. People think I'm terrible at this. So both the things happening in the brain and the body, we're able to turn those around, change them to be more positive, or what we consider that growth mindset, to be able to really adapt, because the world is just going to continue changing even faster than it ever has before. Yeah. So we need to learn how to be able to adapt quickly. Because if not, you're going to have a lot of cortisol running through your body and through your brain, a lot of adrenaline, norepinephrine running through your body that just does not lend well to both mental health as well as physical health.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I find a very similar parallel in the space that I work in with the health and the wellness coaching. And I work with clients to create resilience, right? And so I make them do uncomfortable things and hard things that they don't want to do. We do cold showers, and the cold shower isn't even like that horrible of a thing, but people hate them so much. And so when you learn to do them anyway, and then you start to feel the actual physiological benefits of doing something that you hated and that you didn't want to do, it really just, it creates those changes. And you were the first one many years ago to teach me about neuroplasticity and kind of forging those synapses by doing new things and doing uncomfortable things.
Oh yeah, because I love that you're doing that, which, let's just say, a cold shower. I've been doing that. You've been doing that for years. Even before I ever do the cold plunge, there isn't one time that I get ready to get in and think, oh, I'm really going to enjoy this. This is fun for me to get into 37, which is a little colder than most, 37-degree water.
Yep. But
knowing that I do it and the benefits after make it so worthwhile, almost that high of being able to do that. So it is just it's the little small things that we can do and learn that are uncomfortable that really inoculate us against the bigger challenges of life as they come in. And we're never going to like it, ever.
No. And I also keep my cold plunge at 37 degrees, and it is never not horrible.
It's a battle. See, people realize that. I'm like, it's a battle every single time against my mind. I swear the cold plunge is almost more mental than it is physical. Now, we know there's lots of physical benefits that come from the cold plunge. Yeah. But boy, mentally, for me, it is a mental battle after years of doing it. I'd say it's since COVID. So what, 5-6 years I've been doing it.
Yeah. Amazing. Good for you. Yeah. I wish that I could say that there's never been a time where I walked up to the cold plunge with the intention to get in and then walked away, but I have. There have been times where I was defeated by myself, but largely not. Maybe only once or twice out of the many hundreds of times now that I've gone in. But there isn't a time where I don't stare at it and second guess myself. all of my decisions in life. But yeah, it's cool, the two sides of that, right? Because you talked about, like, there's the mental benefit of overcoming something that you don't want to do, but then there also are the physical benefits, right? Because it's a hormetic stressor. So you get in something that's cold and you're actually creating cellular repair, but then you're also creating this mental growth, right? Where you're overcoming doing things that you don't want to do, and you are forging those synapses. And I think it was Huberman was talking about where if you do hard things that you don't want to do, it actually grows a part of your brain. And when you don't do those things, it can actually shrink back.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's so interwoven with the body that it is amazing, because it's just like a car. Because really, I tell people, your brain is like the captain of your ship. So if you decide you want to do something in your brain, you get motivated, you're excited to go, you've made great decisions, but the body isn't in alignment, like something's off with the hormones, you didn't get good sleep, then it's just like you're in this super nice car and it has no gas.
Yeah.
So they're both interwoven together, that we've really learned, a lot of research shows now, like you said, over the past probably 10 years, that both have to be maintained in a really good way. And they both affect each other, your mental health with the exercise. So they both need to be linked together to be able to really hit your top performance. And for a lot of times, neuroscientists are saying it's all the brain. But now we know it's the emotions, it's what's happening in your body. Is there inflammation? What's the glucose like? So there are a lot of things that affect all that. And it's not just what's happening up here, but also a lot what's going on in the body.
Yeah. And I kind of went the opposite direction, right? I started with the body and then discovered that, it's all interwoven. My evolution was I taught self-defense, and then people would come to me and ask if I can help them with getting in shape. So I got credentialed in fitness and nutrition, and I help people get in shape. And then I realized that there is a heck of a lot more to being healthy than just losing fat or building muscle. And so I got into the whole wellness and the whole lifestyle thing. And then I realized all of the interconnectivity between physical and mental health. And it's incredible. I mean, and literally, like you said, just exercising creates a higher degree of having mental health. It's profound what the hormones do. And so you mentioned hormones a few times. So yeah, maybe you can break it down. So you mentioned cortisol and norepinephrine. Most people they're familiar with testosterone and estrogen, and some people are familiar with like cortisol, the stress hormone, or adrenaline. Most people don't really understand all of the mechanisms of what these hormones do. So maybe you can kind of help us understand how the hormones work with the brain in particular, and then how all of that impacts what we're talking about with change and adaptability and decision making.
Yeah, and I think maybe just an example, just at the high level, the hypothalamus and the pituitary glands, like those are the master glands that are affecting so much of what's happening for all hormone release in the body, which is key. Now, on the flip side of that, you have all the neurotransmitters happening in the brain that are causing different emotions, different neurochemicals to be released in the brain. And so you have these two things that are constantly happening in balance. And like you said, it could be everything from, cortisol to your thyroid to insulin that could be going off. But it's evenly, because the one thing that I brought up the vagus nerve is because a lot will happen in the brain that then triggers down the vagal nerve that then releases certain, hormones or things in the body. They're just happening together at the same time.
Yeah.
So what happens then is, let's say performance, that you're going to be on someone's podcast. You've got to do a presentation in front of a client. And so what immediately is going to happen is you're going to go to a threat or reward state. Usually it's the threat state. I'm not going to do a good job. I'm worried that I'm going to say the right words. And so when we go to a threat state, pretty much what it does is it involves your amygdala, your hippocampus, and the amygdala and hippocampus, kind of two different parts of this threat state. The amygdala looks, and it's the quick acting, like when you're walking down the street and there's a stick and you jump because you thought it was a snake. The amygdala is kind of that. Whereas the hippocampus is more the well thought out kind of strategic type of, okay, that type of threat state. Is this really a threat? Maybe fireworks are going off and your hippocampus saying, no, you're fine. Those are just loud sounds. No threat to you. Based upon that threat state, then you're going to release in the brain and in the body epinephrine, adrenaline that flow throughout the body that cause your heart to race, your eyes to dilate, all the blood to be pulled into your major organs so that you can be ready for that moment.
Yep.
Well, when it comes to performance, what is key that we're trying to teach people, and you do it all the time by, like you said, cold plunge, doing hard things, is slowing that down. Slowing both the brain and the body down, and the heartbeat and the brain, heart to slow down, to go to the parasympathetic, where you have your for the brain, you're in your prefrontal cortex, your great decision making, your executive function. I can communicate well with you. I don't see you as a threat. And for the body, meaning I am calm, but I'm excited. So little cortisol, as it's a good thing. It's getting ready to perform. Look at athletes, top musicians, performers, chess masters, people who memorize numbers and compete and all those things. That a little cortisol, that gets you ready. It motivates you to be able to perform. Your body's on full alert, like I am ready to go.
Yep.
And when you match the brain and the body, boy, that is when you are just going to be a top performer. So you're slightly having a threat state, but then it's more moving towards that parasympathetic, like I can accomplish this, I'm motivated.
And just for people that aren't familiar with the term parasympathetic, can you explain that?
Oh, sure, you bet. Okay, parasympathetic, here's the best thing. Adrenaline, it's the gas pedal. So adrenaline's going to get your heart rate going. You can feel it, your palms are sweaty, you can barely think. That's the gas pedal. And the parasympathetic, that's the brake. We're calming things down. And we'll probably talk about some tools to do that, but that's where you're calming down your brain, you're calming down your heart rate, just really slowing things down and moving to different parts of your brain. So from the amygdala, hippocampus, all the way back up to that prefrontal cortex, which most people know that's the front part of your brain. That's that executive function part of your brain. So back to that thinking brain versus the emotional mammalian brain that, hey, I just have to survive.
Yep. And also one more thing, if you could just elaborate. So the vagus nerve, so you mentioned that a couple of times as well. As anyone should be that's familiar with it, I'm a big fan of the vagus nerve, but for people that don't know what that is, can you kind of explain what it is and what it does, or how you can use it to I guess change yourself or to manage your own presence?
Sure, you bet. So the vagal nerve goes from the neck, and then it goes all the way down into your chest, your heart and lungs, and then also into your stomach. So your abdomen, your intestines, your pancreas, your liver, and kind of spreads throughout. So it connects both the body and the brain. And what the vagus nerve does is it's really the ability to switch quickly from like high intense activation, especially in your brain. So focus, performance, challenge, to this deep recovery. So it's that train track switch that once you know how to activate it, it is life changing once you know how to really activate the vagal nerve to all parts of both the brain and the body to then be able to switch. It really is just like the super highway of recovery and the super highway of just slowing things down. And also I would say performance, because it affects every aspect of the main components of your brain and the main components of your body.
I actually do vagal nerve stimulation exercises with my 3-year-old, because boy, does he need that sometimes.
I think we all need it. Yes, especially
we all.
And some employees do act like 3-year-olds. We all have our moments that they need it as well. So
some employees.
That vagal nerve, though, it makes you more resilient, a high performer. It calms you down. It relaxes you. It is just, and when you see top performers, I don't know if you watched the US Open, the tennis tournament. If you watched, a lot of them were doing a lot of these breathing techniques as they entered in the main stadiums or in between change offs when they were sides of the court. You saw them doing these breathing techniques, and it was interesting because people around me were like, wait, they're stimulating the vagal nerve. They're calming down the heart rate, pulling the brain back in so they can think as they perform. So it is well utilized at all levels of athletics and top performers.
Something else cold plunging does, stimulate the vagus nerve.
Yes,
and you stack it with breath work. It takes me about 30 seconds to get myself under control when I get in the cold plunge, but at that 30-second mark, I start doing breath work, so I can kind of stack the vagal nerve stimulation of the cold with the breath work, and I find peace very quickly despite how miserable it is.
That is so true. And let's encourage people, make sure they go deep enough. Now, it does it does freak you out a little bit the deeper you go in the cold plunge, but lots of times I tell people start chest, but you got to have at least a little bit of time where you get the lower back of the neck so that you are activating that vagal nerve and
bottom of the ears.
I know it freaks people out. Like sometimes at the gym, I'll do it and I'll have my head down just at the top, and they're stopping here. I'm like, you gotta go down. It is scary. Your brain goes into a full threat state immediately, so it's just activating a lot of things.
Yeah. All right. So what's the interplay between hormones and neurotransmitters?
Like I said, they're interconnected and interrelated, very much so, because what's released in the brain with those neurotransmitters are going to activate and release certain chemicals that then cause reactions in the body that then affect the hormones, is what's going to happen. So like cortisol is a perfect example. When that's released, that's a hormone. You have some neurotransmitters that are released. Cortisol is activated, dripped in throughout the body, and your heart begins to race, palms sweat, eyes dilate. They are absolutely interconnected. We didn't know that for a long time, but we do know now that they definitely play a role. And so you've got to have both the health of your body, your thyroid's working well, your liver's working well, you have the right glucose going on in your body. And so, lots of times people just sometimes will focus on one. For a while I was just focused on the brain. Now I'm like, oh, we got to bring the body in and make sure the body is functioning correctly, that all of those hormones are right where they should be. But then along with that we're controlling and training our mind to release the right neurotransmitters. Because there's not a lot you can do medication wise or doing things to really control the brain and what's released. Whereas, as with a lot of things that you can do with the body, both, taking some supplements as well as activities and exercise and cold plunge and heat therapy and yoga and meditation and breathing and all these things, then will definitely affect your body and those hormones. But got to get them checked 100%.
I'm curious. You mentioned glucose a couple of times. Have you observed in kind of the landscape that we've been in for a little while now with keto and sort of the vilification of carbohydrates, Atkins before that, the role that's played on the efficacy of neurotransmitters and hormonal regulation?
Oh, see, and I don't know as much research as I should about that.
Yeah, that's me asking as the nutrition guy, right? Because
you teach me here, because I could learn from you on that, on what the effects of that have been. I mean, it sways a lot of the public in things that necessarily sometimes is done in a good way. Let's say it, and sometimes it's done in a negative.
Yeah, well, and there's ups and downs to all the things, right? But one thing that I've observed and that I've read about extensively is the hormonal impact of some of those diets. Atkins in particular, keto is a little bit more intentional, but Atkins in particular, like it didn't take a very scientifically functional approach. Keto's a little bit better, where you're trying to stimulate ketosis, which creates its own sort of fuel and actually has really interesting mental health benefits if you have ketones floating around. But yeah, not having those carbohydrates in that blood glucose definitely is something to be aware of for people that are moving off of carbohydrates in a drastic way.
In any of those things, and you know this better than I do, you just have to be so careful, because the body is this fine. I mean, it's an F1. For those who saw the movie, it is just it's this finely tuned machine, both the brain and the body. And it's amazing how fast you can kind of knock things off balance by, whether it be supplements or pharmaceutical medications, or just focusing on, one straight thing. Like I'm just going to do Atkins. I'm only going to eat meat. You just have to be really, really careful and make sure that, like we said, that you work with someone who knows what they're doing.
Yep. So you quickly referenced a whole bunch of the tools so you can manage some of this stuff. Before we get into that though, let's kind of bring it into your niche, and that's like the corporate wellness space. So why should corporations and sort of executive leaders even care about this? For me, I get it. I should be performing at my best, but why should I care about bringing this into my workspace?
Oh, because it affects every aspect of performance. And at first it's hard to get that through, in a corporate environment who've never thought about that before. So when we see everything from how you communicate to how fast you work, to how productive you are, to how much you can focus and you're not distracted, multitasking, to, setting up how you work in a day. Everything that you do at work has to do with your brain and your body, your brain health and your body health. And so when things aren't going well, when people aren't innovating, being creative, they're not getting things done, they have overwhelm, they have stress, that is where we come in. And like you said, we take both the brain and what we know about the brain as well as aspects of the body to make sure that people are activating the right systems, releasing the right neurotransmitter chemicals in the brain that then allow them to be super productive, yet make great decisions. They can learn, rewire their brain. They can remember things faster, recall faster. Just every aspect of work has to do with what's happening in your brain and in your body. And now people are finally starting to realize the impact this has on people in the workplace.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's super important to have some brain guy.
Hey, how about that?
Actually teaching and saying, here's some things that you should some kind of lifestyle or work style tools that you can implement that are so small in nature, but make an absolute huge difference in people's lives.
Yep. And obviously the ROI for a leader doing this for themselves is that they are going to be a better leader and they're going to be better at producing whatever it is they're supposed to produce. But at an organizational level, bringing this to the organization, excuse me, to the team, bringing it to groups of people can have a profound impact. I mean, imagine a whole group of people that are now sort of optimized at the brain level and can see what was just stressing them out before that they couldn't really see. Now they can see it and they know how to maneuver around that, or to just be accepting of that and to activate the things they need to activate to just be productive through that.
And also, they're just happier. They feel like they're thriving because all of a sudden, there's more collaboration, there's better communication. And also, once you teach people the vernacular and the verbiage, all of a sudden they're like, okay, Drew, you're in a threat state. We got to take a moment where we teach people, take a moment, go take a break, and take a brain break, and you're going to get that parasympathetic. We're going to put on the brake, and we're going to bring that down so you can come back in. And lots of times we just let people sit in those meetings and take those meetings down. Whereas now people realize, like, okay, maybe we need a break. So it just affects everything. But most importantly, people's happiness and well-being and thriving, that they enjoy the work that they do because they're knowing how to handle the productivity, but also reduce the stress and the overwhelm that people feel every day.
Yeah. So stress and overwhelm. So, burnout is something that everyone's familiar with. It's the point where you can't take it anymore, right? It's just whatever's happening with you physiologically and mentally, and of course things where you are in your workspace as well, but you're over it. You don't want to show up. There's a term that I've coined, the silent decline, which is sort of that period between burnout and things going okay. So it's that period where things start to kind of backtrack from moving in a positive direction, and not just in career, but physiologically as well. And for me, as the health and wellness coach, I'm thinking more physiologically, but I have attention on what that does to how you show up at work, right? If you're not taking care of yourself, if your hormones are out of balance, if you're not exercising, then you get the brain fog and you don't have energy. And what does that do to how you're showing up at work? So it's this whole sort of evolution of getting to the point where you're just done.
And think about what happens when you're done. So when they're done, I can't quit because I need the job and I need the finances to, pay my house or my rent and my car, but I will just quit or do the least amount. And the thing is, lots of times I don't even think we're learning. It's a choice that people make. They just can't, like you said, it's a decline. They just can't do it. Like I can't give you 8 hours, 100%. So I'm going to give you 6 hours. I'm going to take a longer lunch. I'm going to come in a little bit late, and I'm at 60%. And I think these people know it. They don't want to be that way. A lot of people, want to be high performers, but it's just too much. I hear a lot. It's just, Chris, it's too much for me. What can I do to get back? And we know a lot of that has to do with the chemicals and the hormones. Boy, cortisol, terrible when it's high levels extended over a long period of time. And when you match high levels over an extended period of time, it's gonna take you out. It will take you out one way or another.
Yeah, some people just show up and they just say, "I'm done." They still show up, but they're done.
But they are done, and more than we think. I mean, I'd love to get the research. I'm trying to find in the workplace. It's hard to get those numbers.
Yeah,
where people would actually be honest and say, "Oh, I'm done. I'm still working, but I'm 50 or 40% of what's there." But I think everybody who listens knows. I mean, I've had it, knows that feeling where you just are like, I cannot take one more responsibility on.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. I have seen some studies that show that corporate employees that are already at the point of burnout, so not the silent decline, which is sort of a longer window of time, but at the point of burnout, have up to 50% reduction in productivity. So imagine that. Imagine you have a team of 10 people and 3 of them are burned out. And now it's like you have a team of 7.5 people.
That's right. And then add the leader on there, and then the leader of the leader, and it just is a waterfall down all the way where people just do what you can. That's when you hear the coaching of just do the best you can and get through the project, and we'll just get it done and put out there. It is, and but there are a lot of things that we can do about it. That's the good thing. Unfortunately, people don't know exactly what to do or how long to do it, or feel like they even have the time to do it.
Yep.
Like to come to your gym or, to get your help. Like people are thinking that's going to take me, he's going to want me to exercise 2 hours a day.
Right.
To get to that place that we know that not at all.
Just little things you do. It's throughout the day, just those little things. One thing you obviously love what you do. One thing that I've always appreciated about you is you always seem happy. I'm sure you're not always happy, but when you're showing up at work, when you're working with your clients, you genuinely portray a love for the work that you're doing and for the knowledge that you're able to share and for the interactions that you're able to have through that. So what do you do? So what do people do when they're like, I'm done?
Yeah, and first of all, thanks. Such a nice compliment. I do love what I do. I think I've been one of, very lucky to mix something that I love once I discovered it with my job. Now, of course, there's always ups and downs to everything, but it is, I just love it. My purpose is let's get it out there. Let's help, much like you. Let's get this information out there so people know what to do. And it's getting out there now, especially in the public. We're starting to get information. Andrew Huberman, awesome guys, doing just such a great job. Matthew Walker with sleep. But let's go through a couple of things. And maybe I can tell you some of my favorite. You can tell me some of yours. But some of the things people can do. And let's talk about the workplace, since for me, that's a lot what we focus on.
Yep.
But one thing people can do is, we've heard a lot about the circadian rhythms that happen throughout, around this 24-hour, and then the ultradian rhythm, which is these 90-minute cycles of your brain where you can be alert, but then it kind of heads into a trough, and you need to recover. You need to retreat a little bit, do a little bit of recovery. So we are just really trying to get people to take these 5-minute brain breaks and take the 5-minute brain breaks at least 2 times a day. If we can get them to do 3, now people say, how long? 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You just give me 5 minutes right around 10 or 10:30, maybe around 2 or 2:30 when your brain's starting to get tired. And that all you need to do for the brain break is stand up. Number 1, change your environment. You've got your brain. When you change your environment, you have something to look at, the information that's coming through your eyes. Now, remember, your brain, the eyes are the only part of your brain that are outside the protective skull. So when you change your environment, information is coming into the brain. It just calms, slows it down. So once you change your environment, I don't care if you walk a different floor, if you're in the workplace, go outside and you're like, Chris, is too hot. Great. Chris, is too cold. Even better. You want it. So, number 1, change your environment. Number 2, do some type of breath work, deep breathing. I even tell people, if you will just for 2 minutes, breathe in deep, inhale for maybe 4 seconds, hold, exhale for 4 seconds, hold. It's called box breathing.
Yep.
Simple as that. Now, another one of my favorites that's really great for the vagal nerve and your parasympathetic is the 7-11, where I breathe in for 7 and then I hold and then I exhale as long as I can for the 11. And that's been shown to do some absolute great things for calming down the brain. So you need to do a little bit of breathing exercise, which really helps you out. And I tell people, and think of all the great things that you're thankful for. What did someone do great for you this week? Oftentimes we get stuck in the same gratitude, but what did someone do great for you this week? Or what did you do great for somebody this week? And then the last thing you can't, your brain break is your phone.
Yes.
Loud. It goes in the door. Can't even have it in your pocket. People say, Dr. Bray, it's in my pocket. If it's in your pocket, your brain's thinking about their phone in your pocket. No. So change your environment, do some breath work, maybe do a little bit of gratitude. Let that phone go for 5 minutes. Unhook your brain from that machine and just take. So that's one of my favorite. I don't know, maybe you share yours and I'll go back and forth, but take your brain break at least twice a day during the workday. Probably right around, 10 to 10:30, 2 to 2:30 is when your brain really needs it.
Yeah. And I love all of those things. And actually in my programs that I run, we do the breath work and we do the gratitude and we do I don't have, it's not specifically brain breaks, but it's movement, right? So get up and move and make sure you're moving this much every hour and throughout the course of the day. And we do exercise snacks. So it's okay. A similar idea. You're going to spend 5 minutes. You're going to just remove yourself from where you are, go somewhere else and walk the stairs for a couple of minutes, or just do 5 squats and a couple of like incline push-ups on your desk or something. So it's the movement stuff that we also incorporate pretty heavily.
Oh, absolutely. And can I throw in some research here that I love?
Yeah.
People say, because they think especially as the new year comes around, I need to join a gym.
Yep.
I need to get a personal trainer. I need to go fat free, carb free, sugar free. They just go off the rails on what they need to do.
Yep.
And some of the best research shows that if you just walk 3 hours a week, and I don't care how you divide it up, just walk 3 hours a week. And this is for those who are considered non-exercisers. So you go out for 3 hours a week, you decrease your all-cause mortality by 50% within a couple of weeks. That is how important movement is for your body. So 50% of any reason that you're going to die really goes down by 50% by just going out and walking at a pace. This is zone 2, a pace that is, fast enough that you can still talk, but you might be a little bit out of breath.
Yep.
Just a good brisk walk, 3 hours. That's the first prescription I tell people to do. Get moving and hydrate.
Yep. Hydrating is a big one. One of the most surprising things that I encountered when I first started coaching people beyond just working out and eating relatively healthy was getting them to hydrate properly, and not just drinking enough water, but drinking the right water. So water with minerals, not just purified water, which can actually be detrimental at a certain degree. But just people found that they had more energy and they were thinking more clearly just from fixing their hydration. That one was staggering for me that people were that dehydrated, but they are.
Absolutely. I get my sleep. I do the cold plunge. I exercise. For me, it's the hydration. My one downfall, and anybody who knows me, is just the soda. I love soda. Now it's my mom's fault because she never let us growing up. It was like, no soda. And so the moment I got out of that woman's house, the first thing I did is just get these 2 liters and
man, Chris, come on.
I know I'm working on it. I've probably been dehydrated since like 2003.
Dear.
No, I'm drinking more. That's my one, and we all have them. That's my fatal flaw. Oh, that soda.
You ever had Zevia?
No. How do you spell that?
Zevia. Here I find it in like Whole Foods or Sprouts. So like kind of the healthier grocery stores. It's soda, but it's stevia sweetened. It's 0 calorie. So it's not like sucralose or some garbage like that. And it tastes like the real thing. It's actually pretty good. I usually have a few different flavors in my fridge. I still drink all my water, mind you, but once in a while I treat myself to a Zevia.
See, I'm trying to do a 1-for-1. So I have to have at least double the water of what that 12-ounce can of soda is.
Okay.
So, but that's the thing. We all have something that, I always tell people, because they're thinking there's no way.
Coffee.
See,
coffee for me.
We've all got it.
Yeah. All right. So back to kind of the corporate wellness stuff. So for people that are approaching or even in burnout, are you familiar with what is happening neurologically? Like we talked about kind of the symptoms of burnout, but what's actually happening in the brain?
Oh, well, probably just keeping it a little more high level when people go through a burnout is, like I said, there's an over amount of cortisol. Now, cortisol is going to have a lot of effects in the brain. So it causes feelings of fatigue. You're tired. You don't make good decisions. It's that like I said, it's a feeling of like, I just can't take on one more thing. The body is also very fatigued. It's tired. You have no energy, a lot of lethargy going on. So, when that occurs, it's going to take, and it's something that you can't switch, especially if it's been occurring for a long time, that you just can't automatically switch. We're trying to teach that in corporate America, that it's almost like a detox. We got to clear the body of a lot of that cortisol, bring in some of the good, like dopamine. We got to get the motivation back going, some of the serotonin, some of the love and hugs and physical contact and connection with other people. We have to rehab the brain and the body to get back to that, because oftentimes it becomes a habit, neural network in the brain to think negatively, to facilitate the release of that cortisol, to facilitate the angst and the anxiety and the anger, the revenge, all those feelings that would then cause our brains to release cortisol. It really is taking time and doing everything we just talked about, like starting to take those brain breaks, nutrition, hydration, movement. Movement is key. Like it's one of the first things that anybody can do to start to feel healthy, both for their body and the brain. Now, Erica, is, you can't just say, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, I'm just not going to work for the next 2 hours.
Right.
So it does mean that obviously take your breaks. Maybe every 90 minutes, you're taking a 2 to 3 minute break. But it's also one of the best ways to do it is to slow multitasking, like just reduce that as much as possible. So if you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, then I'm going to say we need to focus on the now and one thing.
Okay.
Now, one thing is this, in this project, I'm going to focus on, and initially, when you have Slack and emails and texts and all the things that are going on in a large corporation, small corporation, you're constantly being bombarded. I'm going to say you need to give yourself 15 minutes of focus on a project. Turn those things off. I'm also going to say that put that phone away. It's
phone, the phone and the smartwatch is even worse, right? Because it's right there staring you in the face all the time.
It's and just a little background. It has been designed to hook you and your children, like 100%. Now, yep. I mean, I know I know the research around it. Surgeon General just last year, the United States, shockingly said, social media, we have not seen one benefit for young children under the age of 16 for young men or young women. There is no benefit.
I mean, that doesn't surprise me, but it surprised me that Surgeon General would say that.
Shocking. You can look it up. It's fascinating, but you have to unhook from the phone. That's going to reduce the stress. And part of the stress too is, as you say, people take the phone home, they take the computer home. And I'm a big fan of, and you can talk more about this if you want, is the, starting your day out right and ending your day out right. That is going to help a lot of the cortisol, the stress, the anxiety, help alleviate a lot of those feelings by making sure you're starting your morning out right. And I'm just saying, in half an hour, give yourself a half an hour routine in the morning and at night. And I know that a lot of us, it's just, I'm tired. I fall into bed. I watch Netflix, maybe a little bit of the news. It's the worst thing you can do for your brain. It's just feeding into that overwhelm and stress.
Some people sleep with the news on, and that, oh boy.
It's that light. Listen to a little Andrew Huberman. The research there is so bad because you're just not getting a good night's rest. You're not restoring that cleaner that's coming into your brain. That is just restoring restorative activities, clean everything out. Boy, that it just doesn't work. So you're not putting those memories into the long-term memories. You're not cleaning the brain. The cleaners come in, but not very much got done. Just swept some dust under the bed if you're not getting a good sleep.
Yeah. And you don't need a lot of time to have those good routines, right? Like when, and I'm working with people that are busy, and like you said, they think they got to spend 2 hours working out, and really just give me an hour a day of 2 minutes here and 5 minutes there and maybe 15 minutes there sprinkled throughout the day. And we're going to build you an incredible wellness routine. But one of the things I do ask for is 15, 20 minutes of your morning to, drink some water, go outside, observe that it's a new day, move a little bit, maybe stretch, maybe walk, maybe think some nice thoughts, think about something that you're grateful for, something that you're looking forward to, something that you're going to accomplish in the day. And, just make that the normal process of waking up, not to pick up that phone and start looking at social media while you're still laying in bed, which is what most people do.
Right. And I almost think, tell me what you think of this. I almost sometimes think it's harder because it's so simple. Like if it was a little harder to do, people might be like, okay, I absolutely have to do this. But because it is so simple to stand up, go walk outside, drink some water, think some really good thoughts, maybe do a little breath work in there, that you're just facilitating a very healthy brain and body in 15 to 20 minutes, that your whole day, your productivity is going to be 20% higher from that 15 or 20 minutes just by starting your day out right in that short amount of time.
I think the problem is that it's too simple. Like
I agree.
Just breathing right, like that's not going to do it. Oh, gratitude, like maybe it's nice in the moment, but that's not going to do anything. Morning light, like who cares? Like it's almost too simple. Whereas if someone's like, oh yeah, I have to go crush a 60-minute CrossFit workout, like yeah, that's going to have, like, I'm going to build muscle and I'm going to build resilience. Like that's really hard. I'm like, okay, yes, but guess what? You can do these other things, and you do them enough, and you're going to see some amazing things. I actually released I forget, like a 10-part, just short, maybe 10, 15 minute per episode podcast series on like sunlight and movement and breath work and gratitude and hormetic stressors. And I forget the rest, but sometime last year, I think the end of last year, I released those. And it's just like, there's science, people, there's science. It actually it creates physiological change in your body to think happy thoughts.
You need to put that in your show notes so people can find it, because what I love about that is we exercise our bodies, but we don't oftentimes think we need to exercise our brains. And you have to exercise your brain for that neuroplasticity to learn and to develop and rewire and get the right neural networks and the synapses firing off. You've got to exercise your brain. And unfortunately, you go to the doctor and the doctor doesn't ask you, hey, she doesn't say, have you been exercising your brain? How's your brain health? It's all from here down.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're going to see some changes in that in the next couple of years, that really brain health mixed with your physical health really are looked at as the whole body.
Yeah, that would be incredible. And I absolutely adore the whole concept of neuroplasticity, because it means that I'm not stuck in being the way I am, right? If I want to change in a certain way, then if I work at it, I can.
With your spouse, significant other, is really good news that we could possibly change, which I'm reminded of by my children often, that, growing up, okay, your brain isn't fully formed. And then they're just like, oh, Dad, you just haven't rewired that part of your brain yet. You'll get there. So It goes both ways.
Nice. Yeah, you've mentioned the role cortisol plays in sort of reducing function and sort of the cognitive presence. And one thing that I found to be really interesting as I myself started to dig in on hormones was the role of the effect of cortisol on testosterone. And everyone knows what testosterone is, but most people just thinking of it as the male sex hormone. But it does a lot more than that. And men and women both have and need a certain level of testosterone. And when you have elevated levels of cortisol, it actually blunts testosterone production. And so when you have chronically elevated levels of cortisol, then you just have chronically low testosterone, which honestly these days most people have. And testosterone, it plays a huge role in two things that most people don't know, but that they probably should care about. One is energy production. So if you have low testosterone, you're just not going to have the energy that you should have. And it also weight gain. So people that have low testosterone are going to be much more prone to it being easier to gain weight.
Yeah. And isn't it that it's the abdominal.
Yeah, that visceral that abdominal visceral fat. Yep.
Which is where you don't want it. I mean, you know better than I do. I can't really speak to this, but it seemed like I read research that said even people in their 30s, men in their 30s, are having lower levels of testosterone. A lot of reasons for that, which wasn't the same decades ago, but for some reason that people are losing those testosterone levels at a younger age.
Yeah, it's a lot about testosterone, even estrogen as well. I mean, I haven't looked at data on this, but just from my own experience and people that I know in my life, like I know so many people that have needed medical interventions to get pregnant, to conceive. I haven't looked at the data, but I got to imagine that it's significantly higher than it used to be. And I do know for a fact that the hormone levels for testosterone in particular the medical system has downgraded what's considered normal because everyone is low now. So societally, we're all low testosterone. And so they've just said, okay, that's normal now. What would have been considered extremely low testosterone 30, 40 years ago is now considered within range of normal. So
what's fascinating about that too is I teach at the Geneva School of Longevity that's in Geneva, Switzerland. And so
cool.
MD's there. But what's fascinating is to get the viewpoint of other parts of the world on these numbers versus our numbers, because they will back up just what you said. When they were talking about what testosterone numbers they should be, their numbers were significantly higher in Europe and other areas around the world than what was, I saw what, my doctor would say, hey, this is what was considered normal.
Yep.
So it's, and it is interesting because they're also using different, pharmaceuticals. There's also like, for them, which, metformin, you can get almost anywhere in Europe over the counter, which has to do a lot with insulin and things like that, which then cause inflammation.
Yep.
But it's just interesting to see how different parts of the world are as far as moving towards longevity or body health, brain health, and what they allow.
Yep. And just generally their food is better.
Is fresher.
Yeah. Fresher. It's not all completely saturated in glyphosate and all the other things that wreck your hormonal health.
Oh, it is funny because I always think maybe it's because we're walking so much, or you're in Italy or parts of Europe, but no, it just seems like the food is so fresh and so good, but yet it's so hard to find in the United States. And that's probably a whole nother podcast of even just what are you putting in your mouth and what are other people feeding us and our children is an interesting thing to talk about. So that's for another time.
Yeah, that's a big one. All right. So earlier you quickly ran through a list of tools that you can use to kind of do that brain balancing. Let's go through it. So you spoke a bit about breath work. You've talked about just getting up and changing your environment. What else can you do when you kind of need that reset?
When you need the reset, like I said, you need to have moments of focus. So if you can possibly have 15 minutes where you turn things off and be able to focus, does great for your brain instead of working all day long. Now, I'm a big fan of you need to take lunch. You need to take a half an hour. I'll even take 20 minutes where you change your environment, get some food,
No
communicate.
working lunch?
No working lunch. You need to, yeah, working and communicating with others. We need connection in the workplace. Now, I'm not saying you need to have a best friend. It's great if you have one, but we need to have connection with others. And that doesn't mean that we have lunch and we talk about work. How are you doing? What things have you been up to? What was your favorite restaurant you went to? We are a tribal species, and we have to have now that connection. You say, why? Because it releases the right chemicals in the brain that make you really happy and make you feel like, oh, I'm valued. So, when we have serotonin and we're having those communications and we feel like people are listening and the mirror neurons are activating, then we make connections with people. So I think it's important that maybe even sometimes you just stand up and you walk around, have a couple minute conversations with some people. Don't sit at your desk from 7:45 till 5:15. It just is, it's terrible for your brain and your body. You talked a little bit about food, and things like that. And I'm also a huge fan of, the sleep you get at night. There's a great book by Matthew Walker, Dr. Buse out of Harvard, who, we've done some work with. Great around just getting good rest so that your brain, you get your REM sleep, you get just the cleaning, the rejuvenation, restoration of your brain. It's, in fact, if you look at top athletes, how they performed, a major component of is how they slept 2 nights before. So up to the 2 nights. So sleep is key. So you've got to get good sleep. Now, usually for most people means around, 7-8 hours, but then also taking those breaks, hydrating, connecting with other people, and focusing during the day. Because if you multitask during the day, you are wearing out your brain. I mean, it's a full-on sprint for a marathon when you are multitasking. The brain just can't do it. It just burns through the gas so fast.
Yeah. Get rid of those alerts on your computers pinging you all day long, people.
On your phone, on your watch, on your computer. It is so much noise. I am a big fan of reducing the noise. And when I say reducing the noise, if you just give me 30 seconds, reducing the noise means, first of all, the eye noise of your office. Is there so much clutter and so much stuff around that your brain just can barely think because there's just too much stuff? Now, I'm not saying you need it perfectly clean, but organized. But then also, the noise that you're hearing and experience. Turn off the alerts. Maybe if there's noise around you so that you can just have some quiet time to just be able to think. You can't do great work if you can't strategize and think and hear your thoughts. And like I said, start out with 15 minutes. Andrew Huberman, I love it, once said that he threw his phone because it was taking up so much time. He threw his phone on the roof one day just so he could work. Then he had to climb up and get it. But I mean, it is really becoming, hey, no cell phone meetings.
Yeah.
I'm a big pusher. They finally did it in our school district. No phones for high schoolers and junior high kids. Yeah. None. Put them in a bag as you walk in the classroom. And I'm a big proponent of that. The kids just have to be able to be present and think. Yeah, I mean, you sat through math class and algebra. You learned, but sometimes you're bored. It's great for you.
Yeah. We don't know how to be bored anymore.
We don't. So that's what I would suggest. Some of the easy things to do, short 5, 10, 15-minute segments. That's a great start, because then you'll feel the difference and you'll hopefully spend that.
What do you think of some of these, I guess, biohacking tools like the HAP-B or these things where it's supposed to like get you into like, I guess, a predefined state. So a state of calm or a state of focus or a state of energy. I've never used any of them. I've heard about them. I have mixed opinion without ever actually having tried one.
Well, it's interesting. I tell people, try it. And if it works for you, great. We have the earphones, we have the things that go over the eyes that, have lights and transcranial stimulation. You can put some electrodes on your head legally now that people can send you, and you can, stimulate your brain. There are all sorts of things. I mean, the results are mixed. Some of them have really good research on them and what they do. The problem is, and I would tell people, if it's severe, then try these things. If you feel like the overwhelm, the anxiety, that things are bad, I encourage maybe try some, but they're so expensive. If you just hang on a year or two, you're going to see the prices drop to $40, $50, that you can try a lot of these things and see if they work for you. But I tell people, you probably do the same. You just do a little meditation, even a guided meditation or some breath work in the sauna, just for 10 to 15 minutes, 3 times a week. You will get the same benefit or more than what you're getting from these, but they're very helpful. I know a lot of people use them, love them. You just have to find what's best for you to do it. And there's more and more on the market. I've tried to try as many as I can, and some I really liked. But when I looked at how I felt, what changed, I just stuck with my free routine of I can breathe. It doesn't cost me anything. I can meditate. It doesn't cost anything. I can journal, and all it costs me is a book.
Yep. Yeah. I love all the biohacking stuff, but I'm skeptical about all of it, and I have like $20,000 worth of stuff at my house that I use, but I don't need it. Like I could get by just fine without it. Maybe it's, helping me to maximize the gains that I'm experiencing from doing certain things, or just to save time, but don't need it. Like when I work with clients, they're like, how much money am I going to have to spend outside of paying you on just things? I'm like, you need a pedometer. I want to know how much you're walking. You can get one for $10 on Amazon, stick it in your sock. Like, that's it. You don't need anything else.
You don't. And I know they're trying to sell it, but you really don't. And I mean, there are good things coming that are going to be options that will be less cost. I think that, pretty soon the mass markets will be able to buy and purchase those types of things. But I'm with you. They're great, but get a pedometer, just start walking 3 hours and doing a little breath work. I do encourage people, if it's a $5, $10 app and it's a guided meditation that you really like, we all like Headspace. I like Waking Up. I think that's about $10, $8 a month. That's becoming one of my favorites, Waking Up, just because it's a build on the guided meditations and breath work. So the information builds on that. And I don't get paid for saying this. I don't invest in them or anything like that, but I really like that. That's probably one of my new favorites, because they're building you up as you go along to give you more skills versus it's just kind of random different types of things. But I think it's $6, $7 a month. Yeah. Not very much. So
cost of a coffee.
So just give it up for one day.
Yeah. Don't get your latte one time, and you can set yourself on the path to wellness.
That's right. And you've got it. And just try one thing. That's my other thing. Try one thing, breath work or walking. And let me throw one other thing in there. The last thing, I should say around this is hobbies. People need to get back to having a hobby. Yeah. You go back to the 1970s, 80s, people had hobbies and would spend up to 5 to 6 hours a week on their hobbies. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, people have hobbies and they spend anywhere between 1 to 2 hours a week on their hobbies. Yeah. People just don't have hobbies like they used to, because I think we're busy. Right. I have children, and boy, they've got sports every single night. Yep. So find a hobby. Now, what does that mean? Cooking, gardening, tennis, pickleball.
Watching TV doesn't count.
No, it does not. It does not. It's got to be something where you're learning something new. I love it if it's outside. I love it even better if it's with somebody else. Yeah. So you're doing it in a social way that you can go out. And there's so many fun things out there nowadays. You can take cooking classes and different things that are super fun to do.
My new hobby that I started just about a year ago from now is surfing. So I grew up here in Southern California, never surfed in my life. I took a couple of classes maybe 10 years ago, otherwise never surfed in my life. So I just started a year ago, and I'm still pretty bad, but getting better. And boy, is it an incredible way to start the day. I'm out there floating on my surfboard when the sun comes up. There's dolphins, there's pelicans. I'm grounding, I'm taking deep breaths, I'm moving. It's amazing.
Go that. I mean, if I live, how far are you from the beach? You got to make us all jealous.
At 6 a.m, about 20 minutes away.
Man. Okay, I'm going to send you a shark app. So that I could say, hey, while I'm jealous that you're surfing, just to get in your head a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for that.
No, that's an awesome hobby. We need one about every 2 years. You need a new one. So, and that's what life's about. It's an adventure. And for those who are listening and they're 56, you should be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You are never too old to pick up a hobby.
Yeah,
Never.
that's what I'm saying. I'm early 40s and I started surfing and I'm bad at it. But hey, it's fun to be bad at something because that means I'm learning.
That's right. And your brain loves to learn, loves to get better.
Yep.
That's a good hobby.
All right. So what's coming? What's
Okay.
in the horizon that you're excited about from a perspective of either neuroscience or technique or tools?
Well, the interesting thing about our line of work is that it's always constantly changing. So what we shared last year with a lot of the workspace and organizations companies is changing for this year and the next year as we get new data, new research coming out. For a long time, we get to go out and search it out. And then, because like I said, it's difficult to get that information from the workplace, organizations that will share personal data information. But where it's heading is we are really starting, probably in 2026, going to start certifying organizations as brain healthy, utilizing Harvard's Brain Health Initiative, which we're part of, also AARP, which is all about, brain health now as well. Also, hopefully going to get places like the Geneva School of Switzerland. We're going to come up with criteria that you can make the workplace a brain healthy workspace so that we're getting everybody to take some 5-minute brain breaks, to hydrate, even have the same vernacular and verbiage so people know, so that we can decrease stress, overwhelm, threat state, and really help people be brain healthy, which helps the body, which helps longevity. So a lot there. And then just continuing to help organizations with their productivity and their performance, and doing it in a way that, like you said, it's never been done before. It's not just training you on certain things, it's training you about your brain and your body.
Yeah.
So it's
amazing.
Super exciting. The future is super exciting, and probably be doing this when I'm 90.
Yeah. Hey, I expect you to still be pretty damn sharp when you're 90. So
I better be, as the poster person for workplace, I better be healthy or we're going to be in trouble.
Well, shout out to every corporation that's hired you to come in and make a positive change within their workspace, because it's something that's very easy to overlook, but very profound if you don't.
It's just so exciting things. And you've got to share with me anything exciting happening in your world that's coming up in 2026 as we close out 2025.
One thing that I find to be particularly exciting is that there are a lot of wellness tools and resources that are available that are becoming FDA approved. So things that you can now use, like your health savings. So you can spend, pre-tax dollars on things for your health outside of your standard medical setting. So a lot of preventative stuff, a lot of longevity stuff. There's a lot of things going through the process and getting approved for FDA support that really are in the spirit of just being healthy or prevention rather than treatment of a condition.
And I'm hoping we see a change that in all of the medical communities, from just treatment to let's see how you're doing before things happen. Let's catch it early.
Yeah, I was talking to my GP the other day, and or not my GP. I just went in and talked to a GP, and he was, I guess he specializes in diabetes, and he was saying he's prescribing Ozempic like 10 times a day. Like, people are just coming in for the Ozempic, and he was frustrated. I guess his hands are tied, but he's like, they're not changing anything in their lifestyle. We're not telling them to exercise more or eat better. We're just giving them this drug, and I guess for whatever reason, as a doctor, his hands are tied. He has to check the boxes to see if he can prescribe it. And if he can, he just does. And I'm like, hey, I'd love to work with someone that's on Ozempic, because I would be very curious to see how I can supplement that with actual things that would work and support that journey.
Yeah. Cause you're still worried about your brain health and heart disease and all the things that are going to happen. And obviously losing weight helps with those, but I'm with you. It's a much broader scope.
Yeah.
Than just the weight.
Yeah.
To do that.
All right. If we can leave you've given us a lot of things to think about and a lot of things that we can try, but if you could highlight one thing for our listeners to try when they're done listening to this episode, what's one thing they can do?
You'll hear me harping on this for the next 15, 20 years, is take a brain break.
Okay.
So if you're at work, 5 minutes, start out with 1, then the next week move out to 2. But if you can consistently give yourself 5 minutes where you change your environment, you get a drink, take some deep breaths, think some good thoughts, leave that phone or that computer, walk away from it, and have that 5 minutes twice a day, it is life changing. Now, not just that, but remember, you're going to get like a 20% at least productivity boost for the next 90 minutes based upon that 5 minutes. So it's well worth doing. And that's the first step that I'm going to say to do, because then you also get your movement in there as well.
Yep. And I can attest to that. Just walk away. And when you walk back, you'll show up better than you were if you'd stayed.
And the work is always going to be there. That's the thing. It's like, well, I'm going to work through lunch. Guess what? It's always there. It's always going to be there. It is there for me. There's never a day where I get up and at 4:00, I'm like, I have nothing to do. It's never going to happen, especially if you're in corporate. There's always something to do.
Well, folks, I will link to Chris in the show notes at the superhumanblueprintpodcast.com. So we'll link to the Adaption Institute. We'll link to the Dr. C.K. Bray show. Speaking of which, I haven't given your show honorable mention, so you have your own podcast. I love your podcast because they're short, like 10, 15-minute episodes. You focus on one thing, and it's so kind of like this. It's one thing that you can just start doing or thinking about, or just one like thing that you can add to your repertoire of knowledge. So I really like your show. Also, you have a newsletter, so people can sign up for your newsletter. Again, it's just usually an article about just something in particular that you can use or just that you can add to your knowledge repertoire. So all of that on the superhumanblueprintpodcast.com. Chris, I have really enjoyed this conversation. It's been so nice to reconnect with you.
Great talking to you. Appreciate it. What a good conversation. So I wish you all the success. And of course, we'll stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Take care.
All right, you too.